"You've got to be kidding me," I muttered under my breath. I had just finished packing for a week-long business trip to Mequon, a small town in Wisconsin, just north of Milwaukee, when I received a new email from Joseph. After 5 weeks of discussing and planning our triple date with him and his wife Caroline, Joseph informed me that he would not be able to participate. I had specifically arranged to fly in Saturday morning so we could meet in the evening. Now, I was going to have to spend more time in Wisconsin than I would have liked, especially in December. It was too late to cancel the hotel reservation, and there was no way my boss would approve a $150 airfare change fee. Dissatisfied, I headed to the airport, expecting a boring evening. Although Wisconsin has plenty of beer, maybe I could find something interesting on a dating or fetish site. Most of these dates ended with kissing, at most, but I was hoping for more. It was through a fetish site that I had met Joseph and Caroline a few weeks ago, which gave me mixed feelings. Caroline's pictures were hot, and I was counting on a great evening together. When my boss informed me that my next job would be in Mequon, I decided to look for an interesting adventure again. It had been over a year since my last triple experience, and I wanted to do it again. I quickly found a couple who were looking for their first triple experience with a man. The correspondence was pleasant, and they seemed like a great couple. Both were glad I wasn't from around here, which eliminated awkward encounters in the future. They were in good shape, as you could tell from their photos of running, surfing, and vacationing at the beach. Both in their 30s, so you could count on interesting conversation over drinks before the event. No annoying requests to send more nudes like the photo collectors do. We went through the usual questions. Joseph was relieved to learn that I didn't have bisexual tendencies, and Caroline was pleased that I was taller than she was. They were both 180 centimeters and weighed 130 pounds, as opposed to my 165 centimeters and 65 pounds. She complimented me on my classic masculinity, facial and chest hair, something Joseph lacked. After weeks of flirting and discussing boundaries, we were ready to meet. And then, at the last minute, Joseph canceled all plans. Arriving at the airport, I calmed down a bit and slowly made my way through security. No, Mr. TSA agent, I didn't forget to take off my watch. It's the screws in my wrist bone, as I tell you every week flying through here, to the gate. I lowered myself into a vacant chair in the corner and pulled out my cell phone. I started browsing the other Milwaukee Personals group on FetLife, and only one ad caught my eye. I composed a message, not really hoping for a response given the popularity of the ad, and sent it before boarding the plane. As the flight attendant was closing the door and beginning the safety briefing, I was surprised to see a new email from Joseph. He apologized for the previous message, explaining that he had accidentally hit the send button before the email was complete. Joseph wrote that he and Caroline were really looking forward to meeting, but he just wasn't sure he could participate in front of another man. He described his fears, uncertainty about his ability to perform, possible jealousy, and fear that he wouldn't be able to look at his wife the same way he used to. "Are you fucking kidding me again?" I thought, seeing this message a few minutes before takeoff. I had to put my phone into airplane mode and quickly text them back. "Joseph, I just got on the plane. We've been discussing this for 5 weeks, and you're just now starting to think about it? How about Caroline and I duct tape you to a chair so you don't have to watch?" Fuck it, I thought, sending the message under the flight attendant's stern gaze. A few hours after arriving at my hotel, one of those nice ones with a kitchen and a private bedroom, I finally remembered to turn my phone off from airplane mode. I was surprised to see 3 messages from Joseph and Caroline. Caroline wrote, "We just had a long discussion about Joseph's problems and fears, and I think we can work through them. I'd like us all to get together for at least a drink tonight, if that's okay with you, unless you have other plans." That was unexpected. This was followed by a text from Joseph. "I agree with Caroline. If we can handle the drinks and I get uncomfortable, you can strap me to a chair. I'll be able to hear Caroline, who I hope is enjoying herself, and I won't have to worry about wanting to attack you. I hope we can all play together. This guy is a godsend, Does he seriously want me to strap him to a chair while his wife and I make love? And attack me? I made inquiries about these two, but not by their names, since neither of them had bothered to create an anonymous email address for our communication. Caroline worked as a nurse in a maternity hospital, and Joseph worked in IT consulting. There was nothing in their public Facebook profiles to indicate aggressiveness, much less physical force. Attack me? I would destroy Joseph in a fight. Another email from Caroline. Please let me know. I really want this. I'm tired of one man. Joseph is so passive all the time, it's driving me out of my mind. I was really hoping this would make Joseph be more aggressive. I want you. Anyway, I can have you tonight. I wasn't sure how the evening would turn out, but at least it had potential, even though there was no way I was going to share Caroline tonight now. I finished putting my things away at the hotel before answering. Rooster, 7 o'clock at night, asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I ate an early dinner, went back to my room, showered and changed my clothes. I applied Acqua di Gio, put on a shirt and sport coat, and headed out the door. Walking the 2 blocks to the bar, I got there at 6:30, just in time. The bar looked like an old establishment that had tried to be a hipster place, pretending to be a microbrewery, but had failed miserably. It was a real dive. Nothing on the cocktail menu was more expensive than $8. I love Wisconsin. Placing $200 bills in front of me and noticing only a few business travelers at the other end of the bartender quickly approached me. Sounds like a good start to the evening. My name is Monica. What can I do for you? She said with a satisfied look. I'm meeting some friends here soon. I'm going to have 2 whiskeys, ideally Irish, at least 10 years old. Take whatever my friends want, but make sure the drink for the guy is very strong and the drink for the lady is very weak. Let me know if you need more, I replied, nodding at the $100. I hoped Joseph wasn't a beer drinker. Monica giggled and replied, They'll cover you all night. And then, throwing me a perplexed look, added, Usually guys try to get a girl drunk. I just smiled and replied, She doesn't really like to drink. He likes to think he is, but in reality 2 stiff drinks is enough to last all night. Turning away, she picked up a bottle from the wall and poured me a 12-year-old Jameson in an apologetic tone. It's the best we've got. Oh dear, I forgot to ask if you needed ice. Don't mind me, I'm all worked up. No one orders good whiskey on the rocks. If I didn't already have plans, I might have to start flirting with the very athletic Monica. At 7:15, I saw a car pull up, and 2 people holding hands headed toward the bar. Friends of yours? Monica asked, looking around the bar. I nodded affirmatively, turning around to meet Joseph and Caroline for the first time in real life. We emailed for a long time, discussing how we were going to pretend to be good friends. Caroline, you look amazing as always. Joseph, it's good to see you again. I can't believe it's been 2 years, I exclaimed, getting up to hug Caroline. After shaking Joseph's hand, I sat them down at the bar, with Caroline nestled between us. Despite the cool spring evening, she was wearing a classic little black dress, while Joseph was in a sweater and jeans. Monica hurried over to us and took our order of matching Long Island iced teas, casting a glance at me, which I discreetly confirmed with a nod. Caroline really did look amazing. While she would never be the classic American model, tall and thin, her body had all the right curves in all the right places. She was a refreshing contrast to the dangerously thin or artificially disproportionate women I often met. As we made small talk, Caroline mentioned that she sometimes felt lonely in Wisconsin, being half Korean. Reaching up to brush her hair behind her ear and gently stroke her cheek, I said, You're making Wisconsin a better place. Passivity and monotony is not a recipe for fun. Although it wasn't my best line, the physical contact opened something in Caroline. Her eyes widened for a moment. She glanced at Joseph, and then a smile lit up her face. As the second round of drinks arrived, I noticed that Joseph was pulling further and further away from the conversation, while Caroline and I continued to flirt more and more openly, her hands lingering on my forearm for longer than necessary. Not that I minded. Finally, the conversation turned to the overtly sexual, and Joseph finally joined in, talking about how shocked he was when they met, since Caroline had only been with one other guy before him in high school. As the drink started to come to an end, Monica came back and exclaimed, "Oh my God, you're all going to have a threesome." Without wasting a second, I smirked and replied, "We were hoping you'd join the four of us." Seeing her blush, I quickly added, "No, we're not doing that." Looking a little more relaxed, she smiled and asked, "If you're done drinking, what do you have for tonight? I'll bring you your change." "We're going back to my hotel where I'll strap Joseph to a chair while I sleep with his wife. Keep the change," I told Monica. She froze for a moment, eyes wide, then winked and smiled slyly before heading off to a few other customers on the other side of the bar. Soon, Joseph and Caroline returned, with Joseph staggering slightly. Monica did a great job with their drinks. While Caroline's face expressed a mixture of nervousness and excitement, I couldn't tell anything from Joseph's face. It was strangely blank. I didn't know if they were ready to continue the evening together or if they'd rather go home. When they sat down next to me, I finished my whiskey and said, "Thank you for keeping me company. I'm going back to my room for the night." Holding out my hand to Caroline, I watch her face change. There it is, the invitation to return to my hotel. Slowly, she reaches out, taking her purse and intertwining her hand with mine. Without looking at Joseph, I escort Caroline out the door. Joseph quickly caught up with us as we walked down the sidewalk to my hotel. Surprisingly, he didn't say anything. I couldn't believe how passive this guy was, especially now that it was obvious I was going to sleep with his wife after an evening of flirting and ignoring him at the bar. I supposed he had to be feeling something. Excitement, anger, annoyance, something. I silently walk under Caroline's arm, enter the hotel lobby, get on the elevator, and head up to my room. Letting go of Caroline as she reaches for the bathroom, I look at Joseph. Without looking me in the eye, Joseph says, "I'll just watch. I'll probably sit on the bed next to you two, but that's all I can control." Turning my back to him, I say, "No," and walk over to a small bag standing next to a chair that swivels and has wheels on the bottom. "Sit down," I command, pointing to the chair in front of me. After hesitating a bit, Joseph walks over and sits down. I pull duct tape out of my bag and say, "You said you might attack me. This is unacceptable." I don't understand this guy. Joseph just sits there, not looking up, not reacting to anything. I start to tape his arms to the chair. Caroline comes out of the bathroom as I finish taping Joseph's legs to the base of the chair, leaving him safe and unable to move. I suppose he could tip the chair over, but it wouldn't do him much good, and more importantly, it wouldn't affect me. Looking at Caroline as she takes in the scene, I can see that it's not what she envisioned. I see the hesitation, and then they disappear, replaced by acceptance and nervous excitement. I take Joseph to the corner of the bedroom. Looking back, Caroline still hasn't moved. I walk over to her, take her hand with my left and place my right hand on her hip, pulling her closer to me, and press my cheek against her cheek. We barely touch, her breasts only lightly touching mine. Still feeling the tension from Caroline, I gently lower my lips to her neck, kissing the exposed part of her collarbone and up to her ear. I finish by gently nibbling on her earlobe. Although it didn't spare her any nerves, the bite aroused Caroline enough that she ran her hands down my back, up to my hair, and turned her head slightly, so much so that our lips met for the first time. Our tongues gently explored each other, first just touching and then pulling back. My right hand, slowly stroking Caroline's back, slid lower to her firm ass and pulled her closer to me. It was a spark that threw her off balance. "Caroline, are you okay?" Joseph interrupted our kiss, forcing us to stop. I threw him an annoyed look. Taking Caroline's hand, I confidently led her into the bedroom and laid her on the bed. Caroline no longer looked unsure or hesitant, readily pulling me to her to resume our kiss. Lying next to me, I felt her hand slide down my chest, feeling my abs and pectoral muscles. "Are you sure you want to do this?" asked Joseph again, interrupting our embrace. Caroline's hand pushed me decisively onto my back. "What does it feel like?" she replied, throwing her leg over me and climbing on top of me. "I can't believe I'm watching this," Joseph interrupted again. There was no anger or shock in his voice, but it was still annoying. Caroline pulled away and closed her eyes, disappointment reflected on her face. I pushed her away, got out of bed, and moved toward Joseph, still sitting in the chair. There was a look of fear in his eyes that disappeared as soon as he realized I was annoyed, not angry. I grabbed his chair and rolled it back into the main room to the TV. "I'm sick of you distracting me," I said, turning on the TV and flipping through the channels to ESPN. I almost left it on the kids' cartoon channel, but decided that would be even more annoying background noise. I turned around and walked back into the bedroom, finding Caroline prostrate on her back, with a sultry expression on her face. I paused to look at her hole, noticing the strapline of her dress hanging off one shoulder, showing off even more cleavage. "Oh my God," Caroline moaned as I pressed myself against her again. After a few more minutes of kissing and caressing, Caroline began to undo the buttons on my shirt, letting her fingers slide through the hair on my chest. Once free of my shirt, I enjoyed the touch of her hands sliding over my chest and beard. "I like that. You don't shave your chest. It feels so manly," Caroline said before trying to pull my pants off. As anyone who's ever tried it knows, getting your partner's pants off when you're both lying down is almost impossible. After a few minutes of awkward attempts, I laughed and stood up, pulling Caroline with me. Knowing what we both wanted, I watched as she pulled her dress off the other shoulder and slid it down, exposing a strapless bra and black thong. "You look amazing, incredibly sexy," I said, admiring her curves. Caroline was far from the stereotype of an anorexic model. She was a size 8, with expressive hips and breasts that fit her figure perfectly. Seeing the desire in my eyes, Caroline nervously replied, "I guess you're just saying that, but no one has looked at me so greedily in years." I slowly walked around behind her. Although Caroline didn't have a six-pack, she clearly worked out regularly, and it was especially evident in her buttocks. They were taut like two perfect balls. I couldn't resist and reached out to squeeze one of them, pulling Caroline to me so that our bodies were touching again. "Caroline, are you sure you want to do this?" Joseph intervened again, reminding us of his presence. "I've got this," I whispered in Caroline's ear. "Just sit tight and we'll take the tape off you when we're done," I said firmly. Seeing the seriousness in my eyes, Joseph turned back to the sports news. Caroline had shed her bra and was standing naked, looking both wary and aroused. Taking her hand, I gently led her to the bed, laying her gently on it. Lying down next to her, I began kissing her lips, her neck, her ears. "Patience," I whispered, looking into her eyes as my tongue began to explore her body. Her lips escaped. After a few minutes, Caroline, having regained her breath, looked up at me and just exhaled, "Wow!" Getting out of bed, she grabbed her underwear and headed towards the bathroom. "Don't put them back on when you're done," I advised, enjoying the sight of her amazing ass as she walked toward the bathroom door. "Why not?" Caroline replied. A few minutes later, she returned as requested, showing off her stunningly naked body. Noticing that I was still lying on my back, she crouched down on her knees at the foot of the bed. "What's one thing you've always wanted to try? What are some of the things you've never done before with Joseph, or with your first boyfriend that you've always dreamed of?" I asked. "Making love standing up, always on the bed, always. Well, almost always. Joseph and I once made love on the couch on our honeymoon. And a threesome experience with 2 guys," Caroline whispers, looking at me. Holding out my hand to Caroline, I say, "Joseph's not working right now," and help her to her feet. Leaning forward slightly so our lips meet, I run my hands down her exposed spine and ass. The moment she feels the tip of my tongue touch her lips, I straighten up, lifting her up. Caroline wraps her arms around my neck and her legs around my waist as I start to bounce. Caroline laughs. The position is fun, but it's unlikely to help either of us relax. I continue for a few minutes and the sweat starts to flow. My quadriceps are burning. Carrying, much less bouncing, 130 pounds is exhausting. "Put me down, you brute. I don't want you to pass out," Caroline says, and I gratefully lower her feet to the floor. Caroline immediately walks over to the window and puts her arms out for support, spreading her legs slightly. With a slight wiggle of her ass, I, needing no further invitation, sneak up behind her. "I'm going to blindfold you," I say to Caroline. It's not a question or a threat, just a soft statement. I take my shirt and wrap it around Caroline's eyes, tying it tight enough to keep it in place. "On your back, on the bed now," I order Caroline before she can start to get cranky. I quickly get something out of my bag and lead her over to my place, deliberately setting her down in the corner. When Caroline's gaze becomes questioning, I ask, "What's something Joseph always wanted to do, but you wouldn't let him?" I knew I was bringing up one of Caroline's fantasies, but not to the point because her husband is unable to fully fulfill it. I wondered where this might lead. "What's that and?" I asked. Caroline started to mumble, "Nothing," and we were both taken aback by Joseph's voice. He had been so quiet while we were making love. "She wants to experiment in bed." We both look around the living room, not noticing Joseph, and then we shift our gaze back to each other. I see emotions flash across Caroline's face: surprise, anxiety, fear, and then they change to interested curiosity. "We can try it by starting slow," I say, trying to ease her anxiety. "I have lube in my bag, and I'm totally not going to start with that," I add. We both glance at Joseph again, but apparently he has nothing more to say. I shake my head and head to my bag, grabbing KY and turning back to Caroline. "Take the center seat on the bed and lie on your stomach," I command. With some impatience and a lot of nervousness on her face, Caroline obeys. As I pour a large amount of lube on my hands to warm her up, Caroline asks, "Will you stop if I ask you to?" "Of course," I reply. "This has been an amazing evening, and I don't want to ruin it at the end." Looking down, I notice that her cheeks are clenched, as hard as they can be. "Although your ass looks amazing under tension, it'll never work if you don't relax." "Relax," I suggest as I continue to apply the lube. I keep touching her more and more until she stops clenching completely as my fingers run right up her ass. "How does that feel?" I ask. "Honestly, I only feel it when you move," Caroline replies. "It feels completely different. I can't tell if it's good or bad yet, just completely different," Caroline admits. "Now I'm going to switch fingers and use my thumb," I announce. Caroline started to tense up, but then relaxed, letting out a quiet but determined sigh. "Okay." I slowly and carefully continued this process with my lubricated thumb until I was sure she had relaxed. I had been preparing for this for at least 10 minutes, and hopefully Caroline had too. "I'm going to go on top," I say to Caroline, climbing onto the bed. "Yeah, okay," I hear her whisper, which seems more addressed to herself than to me. Climbing up, I kiss her shoulder and whisper, "Relax," licking her shoulder blade with my tongue. "Wait, give me a second," Caroline murmured, feeling her body trying not to tense up. A few moments later, she calmed down. "Okay, just a little more." "Is everything okay?" I ask, breathing heavily. Caroline replies, "Yeah, I just wanted to try it. You're doing great." Caroline giggles slightly and whispers, "You can speed up a little." Judging by her breathing, the new angle has brought her a lot of pleasure. Caroline slowly opens her eyes and giggles like a teenager. "That was amazing," she exclaims. I can't contain my laughter and offer, "Let me get you a towel." As I'm on my way to the bathroom, I hear, "Wait." I turn around to look at Caroline, who is now sitting up, supporting herself on her elbows and showing off her naked body. That was the best sex I've ever had in my life. Ever. But I'm really tired now and I have to go to bed. Although I would love to spend the night again and play in the morning, we have to go home, Caroline says sadly as we end our evening. Although I assumed she was going to leave, I was still a little disappointed. The sex had been incredible, and I would gladly do it again in the morning. "Maybe next time you're in town we can have a real threesome,"